Hi, friends. Welcome back to Notes from My Nervous System, a podcast about understanding your nervous system so you can move through hard moments with a little more calm and a lot less self-blame. I'm Erin, a mom, a therapist, and creator of the MindCircuit app. It's a simple nervous system reset tool for moments when your body needs support before your brain can catch up. Anybody who listens to the show knows I have a speech impediment, dyslexia, ADHD. So when I mess up my words, I own it and I move through it. Today's guest is meeting and talking with us from across the pond over in London. She is a remarkable professional who spent nearly 3 decades as a high-flying lawyer in global law firms before embarking on a deeply personal journey into somatic trauma healing. She is now a trauma-informed coach herself after facing profound challenges in her own life, including the loss of her brother, and re-examining her career and sense of self. Charmian, I hope I'm saying that right, discovered the transformative power of understanding the nervous system and trauma. She now dedicates herself to empowering other high-achieving women to help them overcome self-doubt, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, and to help find the strength and well-being through evidence-based approaches. Her journey is one of resilience, hope, and a passionate commitment to helping others. Welcome back to Notes from My Nervous System. I'm Erin, a mom, a therapist, and creator of the MindCircuit app. A little micro reset in your pocket to give that lovely message to your nervous system it's safe. Today, we are talking about mental health. In particular, we are talking about high-achieving women and helping them to be able to focus and have a better sense of self. And today, we are joined by Chairman Johnson. Am I saying that right?
Charmian.
Say it again.
Charmian Johnson. I know it's a mouthful.
So
Charmian.
anybody who listens to my podcast knows I have a speech impediment and I'm dyslexic. So I tend to just make up sounds for words. And so I always ask for clarification because of that.
Thank you.
So please tell me, how did you get started in the field? How long have you been in the field? And then please dive into your niche.
Yeah, so my background is really that of being a lawyer. So I've worked in global law firms.
That you were a lawyer for 10 plus years, if I'm correct.
Yeah, nearly 30. And I'm
Oh.
still a lawyer today. I do some legal consulting work, but on paper I had it all, the high-flying career, partner in a global law firm. But there were some challenging personal circumstances. So around May 2020, which was the start of lockdown in the UK because of COVID and the pandemic. And I had an alcoholic brother and he literally drank himself to death, passed away in May 2020. And I know the pandemic was an awful time for many people in many different respects, but for addicts, it meant they couldn't distract themselves by being at work. He was going through a divorce with my sister-in-law, so he was in a central flat in London on his own, no meetings to go to. And yeah, we could almost see it happening like a car crash in slow motion. So my brother sadly passed away in May. My parents' behaviour was quite strange. They seemed to care more about what other people thought of the situation. I think they thought wrongly that having an alcoholic son meant they failed as parents. So me and my other brother were sort of left out in the cold, weren't allowed to speak at my brother's funeral, and a whole host of different things happened. So I'm now no contact with my parents. And so grief, confusion, and need for answers led me to think I really need to find a community that gets this stuff. So I actually started doing some somatic trauma-informed training, really for personal benefits. But as I was going through my training, I just had light bulb after light bulb. I realised why I'd never felt good enough throughout this glittering legal career. And I just thought, my goodness, this stuff is too good to keep to myself. I have to share it with other people. I just felt compelled to do that. And so when it became clear that I couldn't do both at my law firm, I resigned from the partnership to pursue my somatic trauma-informed coaching. That's how passionate I feel about it.
That is a huge leap to make. Very
It
courageous.
really is. Yes, indeed. It just felt so right. And I just thought if I could help at least one other person with some challenges they're going through, then I would be over the moon. And I think, like I said, light bulb after light bulb. I was thinking, why have we never been taught this stuff before?
I have that thought constantly here in the US. I'm like, why is this not taught from like day one, kindergarten through high school? We would be so much happier.
Yeah, I never knew physiologically what my nervous system was doing when I used to react a particular way, behave a particular way. I was always a high achiever, an overachiever, perfectionist, had imposter syndrome. And I thought, well, this is just me. That's just the way I am. And I just have to work with it. Little did I know that actually they're all protective strategies, not character flaws, personality flaws. And that meant with that awareness, I could do something about it. And I probably think that if I hadn't done all this nervous system work and the education, I don't think I'd have been brave enough to leave my legal career to pursue something that I feel so passionately about. I'd have probably stayed where I was, a bit stuck and existing, not thriving like I feel I am now.
Why do you think that better understanding of your nervous system, of the biology, helped with the courage piece?
I think because I knew that I wasn't stuck being a particular way. Like I said, I thought this is just my personality. I'm always going to have to feel I need to work twice as hard. I'm always going to feel like I'm not good enough. It's just the way I'm built. But actually, when you have the awareness of what your body's doing, fight, flight, freeze, and past experiences shape how we show up, how they affect the nervous system, influence our thoughts, behaviors, emotions. I think I realized that when we're talking about being trauma informed, yes, it means I understand how stress and trauma affects the nervous system and influences then how we show up. But I didn't appreciate that trauma didn't have to just mean the serious and obvious trauma. It could also mean the less obvious trauma as well. So, for example, my parents divorced when I was about 6 or 7 because my brain was so underdeveloped at that time. I probably thought, well, it must be because of me. I'm not good enough. So then you start to think there's a whole piece in my past that I've interpreted behavior and past experiences somehow being a reflection of me because of me, whether I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And all that is actually wrong. Now I'm older, my brain's developed, and I've learned about the brain. I know what happened back then wasn't because of me. My parents' divorce wasn't because of me. But I think then it's dealing with these parts of us that come up, such as the perfectionist. If you do everything right, nobody will be mean to you. Having that awareness and curiosity means that you can turn the dial down on a lot of these parts of you that might be keeping you stuck. And as I said, I don't think I'd have had the confidence to be able to make that move, to trust myself enough to pursue the somatic trauma-informed coaching.
Oh, that's impressive. When did you make that decision? How long have you been practicing this?
Yeah, so I completed my ICF certified training in August 2024.
Oh,
And
okay.
I had a very long notice period. I had a 6-month notice period with my legal firm. And so it wasn't until 1st of May this year that I was able to publicly launch the business, the coaching practice. So, yeah, 7 months down the line, here I am trying to help others in the same way, knowing all this stuff helped me.
That's wonderful. To go from 30 years within law to switching gears to help people in a different way, that has to be so satisfying and also a little scary, I would think.
Yeah, definitely. But I never doubted resigning from my firm. But I have tools and techniques now, neuroscience based, that I know that if I'm starting to feel like I'm moving into fight, flight, or even freeze,
Mhm.
I know what to do to bring myself back into that lovely calm green zone where you feel confident, optimistic, compassionate, all those lovely things. And it means that I can adapt to how I feel. I'm not suppressing anything, but I know how the nervous system works, so I can bring myself, as I say, back to that lovely calm and focused, balanced state. And if I'd had all this knowledge at the start of my career, wow. And then that's why my niche, I know we pronounce it differently in the UK, my niche
Yes.
is very often helping high achieving women who struggle with self-doubt, perfectionism, people pleasing, and imposter syndrome, because I've walked in their shoes 1,000 miles, and I see so many brilliant women over the years. I've just seen have played small, kept themselves small, less visible, because they thought they somehow lacked ability. And now I realise that these brilliant women, they don't lack ability at all. What they lack is the nervous system safety. Most of us have probably been operating in a stress state, a survival response, if you like, fight, flight, freeze for years. Whereas if we know how to come down to that green safe zone, calm, confident, and focused, I think they would all benefit so much and would feel less like they had to work twice as hard as everybody else to prove their worth, like I did, being an overachiever and perfectionist. So I just think it's illuminating. Having this knowledge, it's so empowering. It's really in your hands to give you the freedom and the options really to do what you like.
I couldn't agree more. I've heard some individuals talking about women being more empowered and being kind of pushed to our limits, and we're going to push back finally. Do you think some of this has some interplay with it? The idea of us being able to push against that idea of not good enough or perfect enough. I remember reading this interesting article about different powerful women feeling like they didn't have a place at the table. And then when they finally got in the room at the table, they realized there were a lot of people who didn't deserve to be there.
Yeah, it's enlightening, isn't it? And maybe some women decide, actually, I don't want to be at this table anymore.
Hmm.
It's just knowing this stuff that gives you, as I said, the option and the freedom to make different choices. On the other hand, it may mean that you can simply thrive in your career where you always thought you were pushing harder and harder. And I know women often have to juggle a lot of things, don't they? Whether it's elderly parents, kids, running the house. And I just think knowing this stuff does mean, I think, that they don't feel that they need to. Well, people pleasing is a big one for women, isn't it? They'll say yes to things and help everybody else. Their
And
needs
say
get
no to
pushed to the bottom of the
themselves.
pile. That's it. One of the phrases that I really liked to demonstrate that was, don't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. And I think that's a really lovely image, isn't it? And I think some of the women that come to me almost need permission to indulge in self-care. And I always say, if you put your oxygen mask on first, everybody around you benefits.
Mhm.
If you don't, then everybody will suffer. So it's good for them to put their oxygen mask on fair and look after themselves. And also demonstrate to their kids that it's really important to look after yourself, because you know what it's like with intergenerational patterns and cycles. They might have a daughter that sees their mother sacrificing their self-care, doing everything for everybody else. The cup isn't full. So I always think they're quite nice, permission-giving ideas that help them think, right, yes, it is time that I looked after myself now. So
Amazing how universal some of these things are, regardless of what country you're in, that women still are stopping themselves, that they're not believing in themselves, that they're looking for permission when they don't need that. And yet we still do that. I found it as a parent to a boy, it's very liberating being able to show my son that his role in a partnership is to help each other, is to value self-care, so that hopefully whatever future in-law I have, they like me because I showed my son how to value everyone equally. But so much comes from our parents.
Yeah, and this isn't necessarily about parent bashing, because
No,
I
it's
know
not
that a lot.
bashing. It's just
No,
recognizing what comes, right?
yeah, they do the best they can with the knowledge and the capacity they've got.
Exactly.
And I bet their parents didn't teach them all the stuff perhaps that we know now. And likewise, like I say, all the intergenerational patterns that just get handed down, don't they, through the generations. So learning this stuff is, I mean, what a gift to give to not only yourself and those around you, but your children as well. You can be cycle breakers. It's a lovely thing to see. One thing that I've seen actually as part of doing this training and working is that some children now actually can feel themselves getting a bit agitated, realise they're going into fight flight, and at school they might go to the locker or they go to the bedroom when they're at home and they get out a little comfort tin, a comfort box. So it might be a really pretty box or a tin that they've bought. They've put each of their favourite things in there to engage the senses. So it might be favourite photograph, favourite sweet, something that they like the touch of. It might be a pebble or something. And then they can use this comfort box to engage each of the senses. And then that just brings them down to feeling more calm and relaxed. And we know, don't we, that one of the simplest tools for being able to regain that calm and focus is by engaging the senses. I mean, who knew that? I wasn't taught that, how to come back to a nice relaxed state. When people used to talk to me about grounding, I used to think, oh, it's a bit spiritual, maybe it's a bit woo-woo. Being the lawyer, I think I like to know how things work and why they work. And engaging the senses takes you out of the emotional part of your brain, back into the front part of your brain, the rational thinking part of the brain, and everything calms down. So when you're doing that as well, you can't think a negative thought. Who knew engaging your senses meant you couldn't think of a negative thought? I didn't know that either. So there's so many little things that you learn when you understand the nervous system and how it operates. And I think it can take some of the shame away as well, because it's a
Yes.
physiological response.
Yes. Taking that shame away is so important and so empowering for an individual. But
Yeah.
rather difficult. I run into that quite a lot, where a person doesn't feel what they've gone through is bad enough, or for whatever the reasons, they don't need the support as much. Do you run into that? And then how do you help those that you work with be able to say, yes, I deserve help just as much as everybody else?
Yeah, I do see that. I think most of the time when people come to me, they're absolutely sick to death of feeling stuck with something. When I'm out chatting to people, maybe I'm doing talks, presentations, I do get that sense that perhaps it's not severe enough to warrant any sort of support. But I think that's often from a position of not understanding. They don't know what they don't know. So the feedback you get when you do talks to explain just a little bit about why we are the way we are, the feedback is so fantastic. And I think more and more people think, actually, I don't have to hit crisis point before I get a bit of support. It could be I've got a really big presentation coming up and I could just do with a bit of support to help me prepare for that and make sure I'm calm. Another example I had was a lady spoke to me. She was at a point in her career where she was having to give quite a lot of presentations to quite a lot of people. And she was terrified of public speaking. Very common, I know. And she was about to go to her doctor for some medication to calm her nerves. So we spoke about various techniques, what was happening in the body before she went on stage, moving into the fight flight, the fast heartbeat, etc. And we talked a little bit about bilateral stimulation, the tapping left and right, which I know you're aware of, and a couple of other techniques which she practiced. And she found that the bilateral stimulation was a really good one for her. Really simple. She could use it just before she went on stage. And she actually said that she didn't breeze the presentation, but she was so much calmer. Her voice didn't have that usual wobble in it, which she was so worried about. And she was absolutely thrilled. And again, it's just another simple, practical technique that once you know it, and you can apply that in a challenging situation to calm you down.
I love that example, especially with the bilateral stimulation. That's what I built my app all around, is being able to watch that doc go back and forth and have the noise right, left, just to give a person that moment to calm that nervous system so that they can be in control. And it is so simple, but for whatever reason, we just don't educate people about this. Like, basic understanding of how our body works. We completely lack it. And it's just so frustrating. Bravo to you trying to get all this out.
And that's what drives me. Yeah.
Now, where do you do presentations? Do you have a YouTube channel? How are you getting your message out?
Not yet, I don't, but maybe that's further down the line. Yeah, maybe have more impact, maybe write a book or something as well. But
Oh, I think that'd be great.
yeah, I could have done with it at the start of my career. So at the moment, because I was a lawyer in private practice for so long, I've got quite a good network, particularly in professional service firms. And so on LinkedIn, I'm often the most active on there, but a lot of my contacts and network groups from my previous life, if you like, I just apply and they say, oh yeah, we're really interested, Charmian, what you're doing. So yeah, we'd love you to come and talk about trauma-informed practice and what it means and how we can help colleagues and ourselves and beyond the workplace. So like I say, I just get such an overwhelming response after when people say, why have we not been taught this stuff? And I've just been to the doctor with headaches and migraines and he sent me home saying there's nothing wrong with me. And,
Yeah, it's all in your head.
Yeah.
Well, it helped me figure out what's going on in my head and let me calm my nervous system, right?
Yeah. And I don't know if it's different in the US, but in the UK, I was amazed to learn that a lot of the doctors, psychotherapists, counselors don't have this nervous system training. And
Same here.
I was shocked.
I am too. I didn't learn about it until I sought out additional training. I have a master's in counseling and I'm a licensed therapist. And I hit a point where I knew something was lacking, right? And so I actually got trained in EMDR and got certified in it. And that's where they talk about the nervous system and the somatic and how everything's interconnected. And that just lit a spark under me. And it made me realize, well, that's the missing piece. We're not involving all the senses, the body as a whole. How else are we going to expect it to heal? We can't just heal from thoughts alone. The body doesn't work that way. But it wasn't until I sought out a higher level of training that I was exposed to that.
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? Because everybody's heard of talking therapy.
Oh, yes, Freud. If I have to have another class about Freud, oh my goodness.
And I know talking therapy can be great for somebody feeling seen,
It
heard, and
can,
validated.
there's
But
more.
yes, that's right. And I think connecting the mind and the body is really powerful for that effective, long-lasting change, which some people sadly don't get through
No, I
talking
know.
therapy alone, do they? Because I
No.
guess we don't think anxiety, do we? We don't think depression. We feel it, don't we? So there's definitely this connection that is the missing piece. And I know that in the UK, for example, there's quite a lot of money being spent by companies on wellbeing initiatives in the workplace. They've got wellbeing programs, and half of them think, well, they're just not being very effective. Yeah, all that money spent on them and they're not effective. This is the missing piece, the nervous system. And once you start to understand why colleagues or yourself is acting in a particular way, it shifts that mindset, doesn't it, from not what's wrong with them, it's what's happened to them. And it's quite subtle, but you can feel that shift where it becomes a much more supportive and compassionate environment. I just think this knowledge can help so many people in so many different ways. Once you know this stuff, you can share it. And I think the world would be a better place if we were all trauma informed.
I agree. Sounds like you do need to write a book or a program for all your fellow lawyers out there so that they have this knowledge, and all this money they're spending on these wellness programs. Sounds like they should be giving it to you to develop something that will actually work.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great idea. And I do go into workplaces and do nervous system training for people managers and for leaders, because leaders set the tone so much in an organisation.
They do. And if they're not trauma informed, they're just repeating these negative patterns over and over again without even realizing it.
That's it, isn't it? I think some people managers, leaders are quite unaware of how they're showing up. You could have a leader that's quite dysregulated in the nervous system. So they might be in fight flight a lot. And that might mean they micromanage the team very much and they're irritable. You might have a leader or a people manager who's in a freeze response, very overwhelmed, doesn't realise it, but might be very indecisive as a result. So for a leader to take some of this knowledge and this training is so important, particularly in the legal sector, because it can have such a huge impact on the team. Great for individuals, but I always say a smart business decision as well, because when you've got individuals that are thriving in the workplace, productivity goes up, conflict reduces, absenteeism reduces, all that stuff. So yeah, good for the individual, great for a business as well.
Yeah, sounds like you have your sales pitch already.
I think I'm just get so passionate about it. I can just, it's like a superpower, I always think, when you understand about the nervous system, because if you see somebody in the street, on a train, in the workplace, wherever, you might see somebody being really angry and irritable and they might have a go at you for something. And you often would react, wouldn't you, and meet them where they're at in their nervous system. And there's no resolution. Whereas when you understand, oh, they're in fight flight, I wonder what's happened to them, you don't feel like it's a reflection of you and you can respond rather than react. And I think that's one of the biggest things for me. I used to be quite an angry person. And I think a lot of the time it was where perhaps a childhood wound was being picked and this anger part would show up. And I suppose it got people to back off. So it served a purpose. That's it.
Yeah, but not in a healthy way.
No. And I think as children, you're probably taught that anger a lot of the time is not a good emotion. Whereas there's no bad emotions, it's how you express it. I was never taught to express anger in a healthy way. And now I know that I can do that.
Oh, good. Anger gives us so much valuable information. It lets us know when a boundary's been crossed and that we need to speak up for ourselves. But I think you're right. There are too many people just walking around completely dysregulated and not in touch with what is really going on and not even knowing to ask themselves, why do I feel this way? Why am I reacting this way? Do I like the person I am in these situations? If not, what can I do different?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think once you have that awareness, the curiosity can follow. And when we deal with the different parts of us, such as anger or the imposter part or the perfectionist part, there's tools and techniques to deal with them as well, to get them to dial the volume down, rather than, if I take imposter syndrome as an example, very often we've been taught to just push on, do it anyway, feel the fear, do it anyway. Get rid of that awful inner critic in your ear. But with the approach that I take, and you probably are aware of Dick Schwartz and the IFS approach, internal family systems approach.
But please share with our listeners.
Yeah, it's very much when a part like that pops up, the imposter part, it's befriend it, welcome it in. Don't just ignore it, swear at it, suppress it. Befriend that part. Get to know it. Get to understand what does that imposter part think would happen if it didn't show up. And I think that's a really nice, refreshing way of dealing with these parts because, like I say, often we're just told to push on, do it anyway, suppress that part. And that part will only come back louder. And I think for me, I used to be driving to work and I'd have a presentation or a big meeting to do as a lawyer. And I'd feel that anxiety. Oh, gosh, what happens if I make a mistake? I'm not good enough. So I would literally be in the car talking to my anxious part, sat in the passenger seat, to try and validate that experience from something that happened in my childhood. And I've managed to be able to turn the volume down on that. And it's such a blessing. But again, it's just having this knowledge and knowing the tools and techniques that work best for you to deal with these challenging situations.
Well, it sounds like you definitely got to get that message out.
Definitely. Yeah. Like I say, if I could help just one other person, I'd be really, really happy. And I have helped more than one person, but I want to continue to do that. And yeah, again, why are we not taught this stuff sooner?
I ask that question all the time. I do not understand it. If somebody wants to work with you or learn more about you, how do they find you?
So they can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably where I'm the most active. So if they search for Charmian Johnson, I'll come up. I also have a website, which is charmjohnson.thementalwellbeingcompany.com. So they can find me there as well. And I'd be very happy to speak to anybody. I always offer a complimentary call to see what people have been struggling with, what they're finding difficult, what they've tried and how and whether I'm a good fit. So yeah, any listener, I'm very, very happy to help any way I can.
Yeah, wonderful. And what do you wish that somebody would have told your younger self, looking back? What's a piece of advice you would share with our listeners, something that you wish your 20-year-old self or 30-year-old self would have known?
But it's never too late to change something that's holding you back. And with the science-based tools and techniques, you can actually make that change. So I'm here to give hope, really, to tell my younger self that they're not character flaws and you can change them and you can thrive in whatever route you choose to take, whatever that looks like.
Thank you so much for taking time to meet with us. Can't even imagine what time it is over in your country right now, so I greatly appreciate it. Is it late?
It's okay. 5 p.m. It's not late at all. We're fine.
Okay,
Tea
good.
time.
I wasn't sure. I knew there was a time difference. I thought it was 7 to 8 hours, but I wasn't sure.
But thank you so much for inviting me, Erin. Really glad to be here.
Oh, well, please keep us informed on what is progressing with your website. I'm curious to see where you go next. So, any new projects or anything coming up, please reach back out. We would love to have you as a guest again.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, my listeners, for tuning in to Notes to My Nervous System. If this spoke to you, please leave a review. Unless it's negative, keep the negativity to yourself. And if you have a friend who might enjoy this, please share this with them. And as always, please be kind to your nervous system. Her story reminds us all that it's never too late to make meaningful changes in your life, and that our challenges are not flaws, but opportunities for growth and self-discovery. By understanding the science behind our emotions and behaviors and turning towards self-care, we can break free from this intergenerational pattern, empower ourselves and those around us as well, and we can truly thrive. If you'd like to learn more about her or work with her, you connect with her on LinkedIn or visit her website. which will be listed in the show notes below. Thank you again for sharing your time with us on Notes to My Nervous System. This conversation is a reminder that most relationship struggles aren't about doing better. They're about feeling safer together. So approach it with curiosity and communication. But before you go, let's take a brief pause. Let's notice your breath, your feet on the floor, the surface supporting you. Nothing to change, just letting your nervous system register that this moment is safe enough. If this helped you feel even a little more steady, that matters. Small moments of regulation support resilience over time. Thank you for listening to Notes to My Nervous System. If this resonated with you, please subscribe, leave a review. That helps other people find this work who may need to hear it. If you want more gentle micro resets, you can check out my app, the MindCircuit app, in Apple Store or Google Play. It's a short evidence-based practice to support your nervous system when life feels too loud. Thank you for being here, and as always, be kind to your own wiring.